In mid-2018, a manager full of nostalgia and ambition was created that quickly gained relatively high popularity for today's times. Why did this happen, and why was the game marked by great sentiment from the beginning? To answer this question, we have to delve into the history of this game and go back a few years in time. It was at the beginning of 2003, as we can see in the archived record of the site, that the alpha and beta tests of the FreeKick game began, which turned out to be a great success. And as we can see, when the game was still in the test phase, there were only 2 registered online users and 5 guests. 5 years later, the game's website recorded over 32,000 registered players, including half a thousand online, which was only a random reading of the archive page because the playability was probably even greater. And although I don't remember having the opportunity to play this game, as we can read from a kind of farewell post from the still operating Facebook profile of the game. The game was closed at the beginning of 2014. And so 10 years after it was closed, it turns out that it is possible to play, maybe not in a faithfully recreated version of the game, but in a position that, from the reports of other players on the forum, has a lot in common, and somehow provides a continuation of this very playable position in the past. The game comes from Serbia, or at least it looks like the creator of the game comes from this country. It is constantly being developed, what is definitely a plus. For example, national teams were recently implemented. As for the youth players, every week we draw juniors from the academy. Its level depends on the financial outlays that we allocate to it. The game is relatively playable. There are leagues from 32 countries and 2 global leagues of teams from countries with lower playability. The game has scouts thanks to whom we can get to know the player's potential, as well as hidden characteristics of the player, such as adaptation, susceptibility to injuries, etc. There are no coaches, only training pitches that we can expand. In addition to league games, we also have an international cup called the Master Cup for teams from the top positions in the relevant national oil leagues, as well as international games called Challengers for all clubs, which certainly diversifies the game. In addition, there are separate league and cup games for youth teams, which is certainly a big plus. In the game, you can buy a so-called premium account, but it gives you extras that do not affect the competition. This is the issue I pay attention to first. I rate the match engine as quite good. It used to be different before, but it seems to have been significantly improved. We have tactical settings with an almost infinite number of conditional settings at our disposal. We can freely adjust the team's formation by setting each player to any position, which is also an advantage. The game's disadvantages include the lack of information about who has historically won the National League, not to mention the other medal holders. Perhaps such statistics are for pro account holders, but I am not sure. There is, however, a success noted on the club's website in the form of a visible trophy. Summing up this successful football game, I could give the following ratings. Game engine 7 out of 10. Junior system 7 out of 10. Visually 7 out of 10. The impact of paid add-ons on the competition is negligible. An overall rating 7 out of 10. As you can see from the ratings, it is an equal form of football manager. I can recommend.